I'm standing in front of the refrigerator when I hear the shout. Don't even think about touching that food. My husband's family is coming over for dinner. I freeze, the package of fresh mozzarella still clutched in my hand. I turn around slowly and see my daughter, Sarah, standing in the kitchen doorway. Her arms are crossed tightly across her chest, her eyes hard as steel, her mouth pressed into a thin, unforgiving line I don't recognize. I had filled that refrigerator just hours earlier. I'd spent nearly $200 of my own money from my modest pension. I'd lugged those heavy shopping bags in the car to the kitchen at 69 years old, my knees creaking with every step up the stairs, my back aching the way it does every morning when I wake up. But I don't say any of that. I just look at her and wait. I wait for her to explain, for her to tell me a joke, for her to laugh and hug me the way she used to when she was a little girl. She doesn't. If my wife said it, that's how it is. The voice comes from the hallway. It's Daniel, my son-in-law, the man my daughter chose to share her life with. He's tall, always impeccably dressed, always wearing that smile that never quite reaches his eyes. He walks over and places his hand on Sarah's shoulder in a possessive gesture, like he's marking territory. I'm still holding the cheese. "Mom, you heard right," Sarah says, her voice clipped and cold. "I need you not to touch anything in the refrigerator. Nothing. My in-laws are arriving in 2 hours, and I can't serve them just anything. This is important to me." Her in-laws, her husband's family, more important than me, more important than the woman who gave birth to her, who fed her as a baby, who stayed awake through 1,000 feverish nights, who sold her own jewelry to pay for her college education. "I understand, honey," I say quietly. That's all I manage to say, because something inside me breaks in that moment. It's not a loud, dramatic break. No explosion, no screaming. It's silent, like when a dry branch snaps under pressure. A barely noticeable crack, but final. I place the cheese back in the refrigerator carefully. I close the door slowly, deliberately. I wipe my hands on my apron, and then I smile. I smile because in that moment, I understand something crucial. I understand that my daughter no longer sees me as her mother. She sees me as an obstacle, as someone who's in the way, as someone who needs to be managed and controlled. And I smile because I decide that if they're going to treat me like this, then I'm going to make my own decisions too. I'm going to my room. I announce calmly, "Enjoy the dinner." I walk toward the stairs. I can feel their eyes boring into my back, but I don't turn around. I climb each step with my spine straight and my head held high, even though everything inside me is trembling. I reach my bedroom and close the door behind me. I sit on the edge of the bed, the same bed where I slept beside my husband for 30 years, where I cried when he died 10 years ago, where I remained completely alone until Sarah convinced me to come live with her. "This is your home too, Mom. You'll always have a place with us." That's what she'd said 2 years ago when I sold my little house to help with the down payment on this one, when I put all my savings, every last dollar, into this property that was supposed to be for both of us, for the family, for all of us to have a place together. Lies. It had all been lies. I stand up and walk to the window. From here, I can see the garden, the roses I planted myself, the small lemon tree I put in when I first moved here, the herb pots I tend to every morning. I'd done all of that with my own hands, with my own effort and love. Downstairs, I hear laughter erupting, music starting up, the doorbell ringing. The in-laws have arrived. I hear Sarah greeting them with that sweet, melodious voice she no longer uses with me. I hear Daniel offering them drinks with false joviality. I hear the clatter of plates being arranged, the clink of wine glasses touching in toasts. And I'm upstairs in my room like a punished child, like I've done something wrong. But my only crime is buying the food they're enjoying right now. I settle into my chair by the window, the one I brought from my old house, the only piece of furniture Sarah allowed me to keep. We'd sold or given away everything else because, according to her, this house had its own aesthetic, and my old things didn't match. I pull my phone from my pocket and stare at it for a long moment. I think about calling my sister Emily, telling her what just happened. But what would I say? That my own daughter forbade me from eating in my own home? It would sound ridiculous. It would sound like I'm exaggerating, like I'm a dramatic old woman seeking attention. I put the phone away and sit there, staring out the window, watching the sky grow dark. Hours pass in painful slowness. I hear when the in-laws finally leave, their voices fading into the night. I hear when Sarah and Daniel climb the stairs to their bedroom. I hear when everything goes quiet. Then I go downstairs, moving carefully, trying not to make any noise. The house is dark, except for the small light above the stove. I walk to the kitchen and see the aftermath. Dirty dishes stacked precariously in the sink, wine glasses with red remnants clinging to the sides, food scraps scattered across the table. My food, the food I bought, the food I paid for, and I hadn't tasted a single bite. I open the refrigerator. I look for something to eat, but almost everything has been devoured. They'd eaten nearly all of it. Only some meager leftovers remain in plastic containers. I take one out. It's rice, cold and congealed. I eat it just like that, standing in front of the open refrigerator with its harsh light illuminating my tired, worn face. And while I eat that cold rice with my fingers, I understand something else. I understand that this isn't new. This has been happening gradually, little by little, so slowly that I didn't notice, like when water heats up degree by degree, and the frog doesn't jump because it doesn't sense a danger until it's too late. The small slights, the cutting comments, the contemptuous looks, it had all been part of a deliberate plan to push me into a corner, to make me feel superfluous, like a burden, like I should be grateful for the privilege of having a roof over my head. But that roof is mine too. I put $50,000 into buying it. Everything I had saved. Everything my husband and I had scraped together over decades of hard work. I'd given it to Sarah because I trusted her, because she's my daughter, because I thought she would take care of me the way I'd taken care of her. I closed the refrigerator. I washed the empty container meticulously. I put it away in its proper place. I cleaned every trace that I'd been there, like a ghost, like someone who has no right to exist in her own home. I go back to my room. I lie down in bed, but sleep won't come. All night, I think, I remember. I put the pieces together, forming a picture I'd been too trusting to see before. The last 6 months have been strange. Sarah had been asking me to sign papers that were supposedly from the bank. Renewals, she called them. Paperwork. Boring stuff you don't need to understand. And I'd signed them because I trusted her, because she's my daughter. But now I wonder what exactly I'd signed. What were those documents really? Why had Sarah insisted so urgently? Why was there always such a rush? Why couldn't I take my time to read them carefully? I get up before dawn, while the house is still wrapped in darkness. I leave my room without making a sound. I go down to the living room and search the desk where Sarah keeps important papers. It's locked. I search the key in obvious places. The kitchen drawer, the bookshelf, the entry table. Nothing. The key doesn't materialize. Then I go back to my room and pull out my box of personal documents. I search frantically for the original deed to the house, the document that proves I put my money into this property, that this house is legally mine too. It's not there. The deed isn't where I left it. I search through every paper, every folder, every envelope with increasing desperation. Nothing. It simply disappeared. And in that moment, I know with absolute devastating certainty. They stole from me. My own daughter stole from me. Not just my dignity, not just my peace of mind, but also my money, my future, my security. I sit on the floor of my room with all my papers scattered around me like the remnants of my shattered life. And I don't cry. I don't scream. I don't make a scene. Because I understand that crying won't get me anything back. That screaming will just make me look like a hysterical old woman. That no one will believe me if I start making accusations without solid proof. So I decide something else. I decide I'm going to be smart. I'm going to investigate quietly. I'm going to get back what's mine, but carefully, without anyone noticing, without warning them that I've already discovered their betrayal. I put all my papers back in the box. I wash my face with cold water. I comb my hair carefully. I dress like it's any other ordinary day. And when Sarah comes down for breakfast, I'm already in the kitchen making coffee, the smell filling the air. "Good morning, Mom," She says casually, "Good morning, honey. Did you sleep well?" "Yes, very well. Thanks." She smiles, a perfect practice smile, like nothing happened, like she didn't humiliate me the night before, like she didn't steal everything from me. And I smile too, because now I know how to play her game. The game of silence, the game of patience, the game of waiting for the exact right moment to act. I pour her coffee into her favorite mug. I make her favorite breakfast, scrambled eggs with toast, just the way she likes it. I ask about her plans for the day with genuine-sounding interest. I act like the perfect mother, like the submissive woman she wants me to be. But inside, I'm already planning, already thinking about each step, each move, how I'm going to get my life back, my house, my dignity. Because if there's one thing I've learned in 69 years, it's that revenge is a dish best served cold, very cold, and I have all the time in the world to prepare it. There are moments in life when you wonder exactly when everything started to change. At what precise instant did the person you love transform into someone you no longer recognize? I've asked myself that question many times in the following days, and I always arrive at the same conclusion. It all started much earlier than I wanted to admit. Sarah was born when I was 26. It was a difficult pregnancy. I was confined to bed rest for the last 4 months. My husband, Michael, worked double shifts at the factory to compensate for my lost income. We were young. We had dreams. We had plans that seemed limitless. And when she arrived, everything seemed to make sense. She was a beautiful baby with big, dark eyes and a smile that could light up any room. I cared for her as if she were made of the most delicate glass. I fed her, bathed her, sang her the lullabies my mother had taught me. Michael adored her. He would come home exhausted from work. But he always found the energy to play with her, to make her laugh with his silly faces and games. I remember when she took her first steps. I was in the kitchen, making dinner, when I heard a small gasp. I turned around to see her clinging to the edge of the couch, pushing herself forward with determination. She took 3 wobbly steps before falling onto her padded bottom. But she'd done it. I cried with joy. I called Michael at work immediately to tell him. He left early that day just to see her walk again, his face beaming with pride. We were happy. We didn't have much money. We lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment with old furniture and worn carpet. But it was our home, and that was enough. When Sarah turned 5, she started kindergarten. I got a part-time job at a bakery to help with expenses. Michael stayed at the factory, working overtime whenever he could. We worked hard. We saved what little we could. We dreamed of buying a house someday, of giving Sarah everything we'd never had. She was a good student. She brought home excellent grades, participated enthusiastically in school plays, had plenty of friends. She was a normal, happy child. Or so I thought, because now, when I look back with clearer eyes, I see things I didn't see then. Small details I ignored because I didn't want to see problems where I thought there were none. Like when she was 8, and I asked her to share her toys with a neighbor's daughter. She refused flatly. She hid all her toys in her room and locked the door. I thought it was just a phase, that all children go through selfish stages. I talked to her gently. I explained the importance of sharing and kindness. She nodded with those innocent eyes, but she never actually shared her things. Not once. Or like when she was 12 and found a $100 bill I'd hidden in a drawer for emergencies. She asked if she could use it to buy a dress she'd seen at the store. I said no, explaining that the money was reserved for something important. She got angry. She didn't speak to me for 3 days, giving me the cold shoulder with practiced precision. And when she finally spoke to me again, it was as if nothing had happened. But the money had disappeared. I never found it, and she never mentioned it again. I should have seen it then. I should have paid closer attention. But I was so busy working, so tired at the end of each day, so focused on simply surviving that I didn't notice the warning signs. Michael died when Sarah was 19, a massive heart attack at work, sudden and merciless. He collapsed mid-shift. By the time the ambulance got him to the hospital, it was too late. I received the call at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. My life split in two that day, a before and an after, a world with Michael and a world without him. Sarah didn't cry at the funeral. That surprised me deeply. She remained serious, quiet, but completely dry-eyed. Not a single tear. I asked if she was okay, worried about her silence. "Yes," she said simply. "I'm just processing. I'll cry later." But I never saw her cry for her father. Not once. The years that followed were brutally hard. Michael's life insurance was modest, enough to pay for the funeral and leave some small savings. I kept working at the bakery, but now I also cleaned houses on weekends. I needed money for Sarah's college education. She wanted to study business administration. It was an expensive degree at a prestigious university, but I was willing to do whatever it took. I sold Michael's tools, each one a small heartbreak. I sold his car, which still smelled like him. I sold some jewelry I'd been saving for years. Pieces that had sentimental value, but monetary worth when necessary. All of it went to paying tuition, buying her textbooks, giving her money for transportation and food. I ate less. I wore the same clothes for years until they were threadbare. I didn't buy anything unnecessary for myself. Everything, every single dollar, was for her future, for her success. During college, Sarah came home only when she needed money. She would call with urgency in her voice, saying she had unexpected expenses, that she needed to pay for a project, that there was a special fee that had come up. And I gave her whatever she asked for without questioning, without doubting, because she was my daughter, because I thought I was investing in her future, in the life she deserved. She graduated with honors. I attended the ceremony, bursting with pride, my eyes filled with happy tears. It had been worth it. All the sacrifice had been worth it. Or so I thought. She got a job quickly, a position at a big company with a good salary. She told me excitedly that now she would take care of me, that it was her turn to provide, that everything I'd done for her, she would return multiplied. And I believed her, because I wanted to believe her, because I needed to believe my sacrifice had meant something. But months passed and nothing changed. She kept asking for money, for a professional development course, for a work trip, for professional clothes that would help her advance. And I kept giving, because that's who I am. That's who I've always been. The one who gives, the one who sacrifices, the one who puts everyone before herself. She met Daniel at work. She introduced him to me 6 months after they started dating. He was polite, well-dressed, came from a family with money. He worked at the same company as Sarah in a senior position. He seemed like a good man with solid prospects. And I was happy for her. I thought she'd finally found someone who would make her happy, who would value her. They got married the following year. It was a big, elaborate wedding in a fancy hall with over 200 guests. I paid my share, $15,000 from my carefully accumulated savings. Sarah said it was the least I could do, that the groom's family was paying much more, that she couldn't look bad in comparison. And I paid, even though those $15,000 represented years of my life, years of work, of sacrifice, of getting up before dawn and going to bed exhausted. At the wedding, she barely acknowledged me. She was busy with her in-laws, with important guests, with people who mattered to her career. She exchanged perhaps 2 words with me, introduced me as her mother in passing, and moved on as if I were just a requirement, an obligation, something to check off her list. The first months of their marriage, they lived in a small apartment. I visited on Sundays, bringing food I prepared, cleaning a bit to help out, offering assistance wherever I could. But I always felt like an intrusion, like they would have preferred I didn't come at all. Then they started talking about buying a house. Daniel wanted something bigger, in a better neighborhood, something that reflected their status. But they didn't have enough for the down payment. They needed $50,000. And they looked at me. "Mom, you have savings, right?" Sarah said one Sunday, her tone calculated. "You could lend us the money for the house. We'd pay you back little by little, with interest if you want. And you could live with us. You wouldn't have to be alone anymore. It would be perfect, a real family again." That's what she said, her eyes wide and earnest. And I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe she was genuinely including me in her life, that she was giving me a place in her home, that she finally valued me the way I'd always valued her. I sold my house, the small house Michael and I had bought after years of saving, the house where we'd raised Sarah, where we'd been genuinely happy. I sold it without hesitation and gave her all the money, the full $50,000. She promised to put my name on the deed. She promised a house would belong to both of us, that I would have my own room, my own space, that I would always be welcome. And I signed everything they put in front of me because I trusted her, because she's my daughter. But now I understand that was my downfall, the exact moment I lost everything. The moment I stopped owning my own life. The moment I became an unwanted guest in what should have been my own home. The first months in the new house were tolerable. Sarah still maintained appearances. She greeted me pleasantly in the mornings, included me in some conversations, allowed me to cook and participate in household decisions. But there was something off, something I couldn't quite identify, an invisible tension that hung in the air every time I entered a room, like I was intruding on something private. Daniel worked late most nights, came home tired and withdrawn, and immediately locked himself in his study. Sarah spent hours on her phone, scrolling endlessly. I kept myself busy cleaning, cooking, tending the garden, trying to be useful, try to justify my presence in this house that was supposedly mine too, even though it felt less so with each passing day. One day, quite by accident, I found papers scattered on the dining table, bank documents left out carelessly. I didn't mean to read anything private. I was simply cleaning. But my name caught my eye on one page, and that grabbed my attention immediately. It was a document about the house mortgage. I read quickly, trying to understand the dense legal language. There were numbers, technical terms I didn't comprehend well. But one thing was crystal clear. My name wasn't on the deed as an owner. It only appeared as a reference, as someone who had contributed financially, but not as a legal owner. Something cold ran through my entire body, like ice water in my veins. Sarah and I have been thinking, he said carefully. This house is expensive to maintain. The utilities, the property taxes, the maintenance, everything keeps going up in price. And, well, you live here but don't contribute anything financially. You eat our food. You use our electricity, our water. Everything comes out of our pocket. His words hit me like buckets of ice water, shocking and painful. Me, who had just filled a refrigerator with $200 worth of groceries. Me, who cleaned the entire house daily, who cooked meals, who tended the garden, who did everything possible to not be a burden. But I didn't say any of that. I just looked at him, waiting for him to finish, my hands gripping the edge of the counter. So, we think it would be fair if you paid something, he continued. A monthly rent. Not much, just $500 to help with expenses. It's minimal, really. Any room in this neighborhood would cost double that. $500. For living in the house I'd helped buy. In the house where I'd invested all my money. In the house that was supposed to be mine too. Sure, Daniel, I said quietly. I'll think about it. There's not much to think about, Linda, he said firmly. It starts next month. Sarah will give you the details. He poured himself a glass of water from the filtered pitcher. He drank it slowly, deliberately, watching me over the rim, as if waiting for me to protest, to argue, to refuse. But I remained quiet, still holding my empty mug in my hands, my mind racing. When he left the kitchen, I turned off the stove. I didn't want tea anymore. I didn't want anything except to go to my room, to lock myself in, to process everything that was happening to me. I climbed the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. I entered my room and closed the door behind me. I sat on my bed, staring at nothing, and for the first time in a very long time, I allowed the tears to come. I cried silently, my face buried in my hands, my body shaking with suppressed sobs. I cried for my naivety, for my stupidity, for trusting so completely and blindly, for giving everything without protecting myself, for believing that a mother's love was enough, that it would be reciprocated and valued. But after a while, the tears dried up naturally, and something else appeared in their place. Something cold, something hard, something I didn't know I had inside me. Rage. But not the hot, explosive rage that makes you scream and throw things. This was the cold rage that makes you think clearly, the rage that plans carefully, the rage that waits patiently for the precise moment to strike. I stood up from the bed. I washed my face with cold water. I looked at myself in the mirror for a long moment. I saw a 69-year-old woman, tired, wrinkled, with gray hair that needed coloring. But I also saw alert eyes, determination I didn't know I possessed, strength I'd never needed before. I wasn't going to sit back passively. I wasn't going to let them steal from me like this. I wasn't going to let them treat me like I was worthless, disposable. I'd given too much. I'd sacrificed too much of my life. And now it was time to get back what was mine. The following days were strange, surreal. I continued doing everything as usual, getting up early, making breakfast, cleaning the house meticulously, tending the garden with care. But something fundamental had changed inside me. I no longer did these things with love or even resignation. I did them with strategy. Every move was calculated. Every word was measured. Every smile was fake. Sarah didn't notice the change, or perhaps she simply didn't care. She went on with her life, her job, her social outings, her endless shopping trips. She treated me like furniture, something that's always there but doesn't deserve attention or acknowledgement. And I let her think exactly that, because it suited my purposes perfectly. I needed them to let their guard down, to become complacent. I started observing everything much more carefully. Their schedules, their routines when they left the house, when they returned, where they kept important things, what conversations they had when they thought I wasn't listening or didn't matter. One morning, while cleaning the living room, I found Sarah's phone lying on the couch. She'd forgotten it in her rush to get to work early. I looked at it for a long moment, my heart pounding. I knew her password. I'd seen her enter it hundreds of times without thinking. For simple numbers, her wedding date. I picked up the phone carefully. My hands were shaking, but my mind was crystal clear and focused. I unlocked it easily. I went into her messages, searching for conversations with Daniel, with her friends, with her in-laws. I read quickly, taking mental notes of everything, my heart pounding harder with each revelation. There was a chat thread with her friend Samantha. Recent messages from just 2 days ago. I read them, and my blood ran cold. I'm almost done getting my mom off the deed completely. The lawyer says in 2 weeks it'll all be ready and finalized. Finally, I can sell this house and buy something better without her being able to claim anything. Can't wait. The words hit me like physical punches. I read the message again and again, making sure I wasn't misunderstanding. She hadn't just removed me from the deed. She was actively planning to sell the house I'd helped buy, and purchase another where I would have absolutely no rights whatsoever. I kept reading, scrolling back through the conversation with trembling fingers. There were more messages from several weeks earlier. My mom is so naive, hello. She literally signs everything I put in front of her, doesn't even read anything carefully. Now, just one more document, and we're done. Problem solved. Problem. I was a problem to her, her own mother, the woman who had given birth to her, who had raised her with love and sacrifice, who had given up her entire life for her. I was just a problem to be solved, an obstacle to be removed. I took photos of all the messages with my own phone, my hands shaking so badly that some came out slightly blurry. But I took several of each message, making sure I had clear evidence. I needed proof. I needed to document everything meticulously. There was another chat with someone named Leonard Torres, a name I didn't recognize. I opened that conversation with growing dread. Mrs. Johnson, as I explained last week, we've successfully processed all the documents you brought to our office. Your mother signed a complete waiver of rights on the property without any issues. Everything is properly in order. We just need her to sign one final paper, and the entire process will be complete. You can stop by the office any time this week to finalize. A lawyer. She'd gone to a lawyer behind my back. She'd forged documents, manipulated me into signing my own doom, and I hadn't even known what I was signing. I carefully noted the lawyer's name, his phone number, the office address from their chat history. Everything Every detail, every word that might be useful later. I kept checking through her phone methodically. There were photos, scanned documents, copies of papers I'd signed without reading carefully enough. Contracts, waivers, assignments of rights. All of it was there on her phone like trophies of her betrayal. Evidence of her calculated deception. I took photos of everything, one by one, making absolutely sure they were clear and readable, that every word was visible. This was gold. This was exactly what I needed to prove what they'd done to me. I heard a car in the driveway suddenly. My heart stopped completely. I rushed to the window and looked out. It was just the neighbor pulling in. I kept checking the phone quickly. I didn't have much time. I didn't know when Sarah might realize she'd forgotten her phone and come rushing back. I found a folder labeled Mom Documents. My stomach churned as I opened it. There were copies of everything. My ID, my birth certificate, the deed to my old house, all the transfer receipts for the money I'd given them. Everything they needed to steal from me was there, meticulously organized and filed away like a criminal dossier, like evidence of a perfect crime. And then I saw something else that made my blood run cold. A recent document. A quote for a new house in another neighborhood. Much bigger, much more expensive, in one of the most exclusive areas of the city. It was dated just last week. They were already looking at where to move next, already planning their upgrade, already preparing to leave me with nothing, homeless and penniless. I took photos of absolutely everything, my fingers moving frantically across the screen. Then I carefully deleted the call history and message notifications so she wouldn't know I'd access her phone. I left it exactly where I'd found it. Same angle, same position on the couch cushion. I went up to my room quickly, my legs feeling weak. I closed the door and sat on the bed, trying to control my breathing. I connected my phone to my old laptop, the one I brought from my previous house, one of the few possessions they'd let me keep. I transferred all the photos carefully, saving them in a hidden folder deep in the system. I made backup copies on a USB drive I'd had stored in a drawer. I couldn't risk losing this evidence. This was everything. While the files transferred slowly, I thought about everything I'd just seen, about how my own daughter had planned my destruction with such cold calculation, such meticulous precision, like I was just an obstacle in her path to a better life, something to be removed and discarded so she could move forward unencumbered. I finished saving everything. I hid the USB drive in the most unlikely place I could think of, inside a box of feminine hygiene products in my bathroom cabinet. No one would ever look there, especially not Daniel. I went downstairs to the kitchen, forcing myself to move normally. I put water on to boil for tea. My hands no longer shook. My mind felt strangely, eerily calm now. Now I knew exactly what I was fighting against. I knew how deep the betrayal ran, how calculated and deliberate it had been from the very beginning. And that gave me power. Because knowledge is power. And now I had both. That afternoon when Sarah returned home from work, she was clearly upset, searching frantically for something, opening drawers and moving cushions. "Mom, have you seen my phone?" she asked, her voice tight with anxiety. "No, honey. Where did you leave it?" "I don't know. I had it this morning, but I can't find it anywhere." I helped her look, playing my part perfectly. We checked the living room, the kitchen, her bedroom. I acted worried and supportive, like the perfect, concerned mother she thought I still was. "Here it is," I said, reaching between the couch cushions and pulling it out. It was wedged in here. She grabbed it with visible relief, quickly checking her messages and call log. Everything appeared normal to her. She suspected nothing. Why would she? I was just her naive mother, the foolish old woman who signed whatever they put in front of her without reading it. "Thanks, Mom," she said, already turning away, dismissing me. "You're welcome, honey." She disappeared into her room. I remained in the living room, looking out the window at the darkening sky. But I no longer felt lost or helpless. I no longer felt like a victim. Now I knew exactly what I needed to do. The next several days I spent researching intensively. I searched online for information about the lawyer Leonard Torres. I found his professional website easily. His office was located about 30 minutes away by bus. I read carefully about his services: real estate law, estates, contracts. Exactly what Sarah would need to steal from me legally. I also searched extensively for information about my rights, what I could do if someone had made me sign documents under false pretenses, through deception. I read legal articles, public forums, testimonies from other people in similar situations. I took detailed notes, saved important links, prepared myself mentally for what was coming. One afternoon, while Sarah and Daniel were both safely at work, I took the bus downtown to my bank, the same bank where we'd handled the house mortgage originally. I asked to speak with an executive. A young woman in her 30s greeted me with a professional smile. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you today?" "I need information about a property," I said carefully. "I'm a co-owner, but I don't have copies of the relevant documents. I'd like to know how to obtain them." She asked for my identification. I handed it over, watching her face as she typed information into her computer. Her expression changed slightly, a small frown appearing between her eyebrows. "Mrs. Thompson, according to our records, you don't appear as an owner of any property currently." "That's impossible," I said firmly. "I put $50,000 toward the down payment on a house. I have the transfer receipt right here." I showed her the receipt I'd carefully preserved. She reviewed it closely, typed more information into her computer, her frown deepening. "I can see the transfer here in our system," she said slowly, "but it was processed as a direct transfer to Sarah Johnson's personal account, not as part of a co-ownership contract or joint property purchase. According to our records, it was classified as a gift, a personal donation. Therefore, you have no legal rights over property." Her words confirmed my worst fears completely. They'd tricked me from the very beginning. There had never been any real intention to put me on the deed. It had all been an elaborate plan to take my money. "Is there anything I can do?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "You would need to consult with a lawyer, ma'am. We only handle the financial aspects of transactions. But if you sign legal documents waiving your rights to the property, it will be very difficult to recover anything. I'm sorry." I thanked her quietly and left the bank, my legs feeling unsteady. I walked to a bench in the nearby park and sat down heavily. The cool air filled my lungs as I breathed deeply, trying to clear my mind and think logically. Now I knew 3 critical things with absolute certainty. First, they had stolen from me legally, using the system itself against me. Second, I had solid proof of their conspiracy, their intentional deception. Third, I desperately needed a lawyer, a good one who wasn't on Sarah's side. I pulled out my phone and searched for attorneys specializing in family fraud and elder financial abuse. I found several options. I read reviews carefully, compared their fees, noted phone numbers and addresses. I would start calling tomorrow, because now I wasn't alone in this fight anymore. Now I had information. I had proof. I had a plan forming in my mind. I walked home slowly, deliberately, thinking through each step, each move I would need to make. Sarah and Daniel weren't home yet when I arrived. The house was empty and silent, like a stage waiting for the next act of the play to begin. And I was ready to act, ready to fight for what was rightfully mine, ready to show them they had gravely underestimated the wrong person. The next morning, I waited patiently for Sarah and Daniel to leave for work. I dressed with particular care, choosing my best outfit, a simple but presentable navy dress that made me look respectable and dignified. I combed my hair carefully. I applied light makeup, wanting to look like someone who should be believed, someone credible and trustworthy. I took my purse and packed all the evidence I meticulously gathered, the printed photos of Sarah's messages, the bank receipts, the USB drive with all the information from her phone, everything organized neatly in a folder. I left the house and walked to the bus stop. The ride downtown took 40 minutes. I spent the entire time looking out the window, watching streets and buildings pass by, people go about their busy lives, completely unaware of my private struggle. And I thought about how my life had reached this devastating point. How I'd gone from having my own home, my own security, to essentially begging for justice. The lawyer's office I'd selected was located in an older building downtown. I climbed the stairs slowly to the 3rd floor, my knees protesting with each step. But I kept going because this was critically important. This was my future, my life, everything I had left. I knocked on the door. A middle-aged secretary greeted me pleasantly. I explained that I needed an urgent legal consultation about a family matter. She asked me to wait in a small reception area. There were outdated magazines on a side table, inexpensive prints on the walls, but the place looked clean, organized, and professional enough. After about 20 minutes, she called my name. I entered a modest office where a man in his early 50s waited behind a cluttered desk. He had graying hair, wire-rimmed glasses, and wore a simple but neat suit.